My fiancée humiliated me at our rehearsal dinner, saying I was nothing compared to her ex. I stood up, spoke one sentence that silenced the room, and left. The wedding never happened. I, 32 male, am an engineer. I work long hours, but I've always found satisfaction in building things, in creating stability. That was what I thought I was doing with my life, with my future, and especially with my fiancée, her. We'd been together for 3 years, and the wedding was tomorrow. The rehearsal dinner, though, that's where the foundation cracked and the whole structure collapsed. For the last year, I'd been walking around with this constant, low-level feeling that I was perpetually falling short. Like I was auditioning for a role I'd already landed, only to find out the role was placeholder. It started subtle, a dismissive laugh when I mentioned a promotion, a pointed comparison to how much better her ex, let's call him the alpha, was doing, or how much more lavish his lifestyle was. It ratcheted up big time once the engagement ring was on her finger. The ring was a point of tension itself. It was decent, cost me a significant chunk of my savings, but according to her it was nice, but not really a statement piece, unlike the giant rock the alpha had given his current fiancée. The whole wedding planning process wasn't a collaboration, it was a detailed, non-negotiable execution of her vision. Her parents, a retired judge and a high-end real estate broker, backed her every demand. They had this chilling weight of social standing and old money that made me feel like an outsider constantly. My parents, middle-class educators who worked hard for everything, were essentially shuffled off to a distant corner of the seating chart. I felt the pressure, the constant implication that I was incredibly lucky to be marrying into this higher social strata. It was frustrating, but I kept telling myself it was just pre-wedding stress, the merging of two different worlds. The rehearsal dinner was held in the private dining room of some ridiculously exclusive club. Everything was crystal, heavy linen, and hushed reverence. I kept nervously checking my suit and wondering if I'd left a smudge on the silverware. As the drinks flowed, the mood for the guests got jovial. For me, the tension was a physical knot in my chest. Her father gave a toast. It wasn't a loving tribute, more like a corporate vetting of my future earnings potential. It was awkward, but I just smiled and nodded. Then her mother grabbed the mic. In this voice that somehow sounded both sweet and utterly condescending, she talked about how truly blessed their family was to finally be done with the alpha, who was charming, yes, but ultimately irresponsible, and how I, while perhaps a little less flashy, was dependable, solid, and had excellent credit. I saw my dad clench his jaw, but he gave me the silent signal. Just get through tonight, son. Then came her turn. She stood up, glass in hand, radiating this intense confidence that I now realize was pure, weaponized entitlement. She thanked everyone, then turned to me, her eyes just a bit too shiny from the champagne. To my future husband, she started, her voice carrying across the room, which had gone silent in expectation. She raised her glass, paused, and a slow, cold smile spread across her face. I just want to say, for all the people here who knew me before and who know the alpha, I know what you're all thinking. A cold shot of dread went through me. I knew this wasn't going to be good. This wasn't a sweet moment. You're thinking, she continued, making sure everyone heard, that he, and she pointed the glass at me, is, well, he's nothing compared to the alpha. And you're right. The entire room went dead silent. My face was burning with instant, humiliating heat. This wasn't a drunken mistake. This was a calculated, deliberate insult delivered to an audience she knew would either appreciate the cruelty or be too scared to challenge her on it. The alpha had the presence, she continued, turning to the room, the style. He made waves. He was ambitious, yes, sometimes too much, which is why we're here tonight, right? She let out a sharp, unnatural laugh. But this one, she looked back at me, her expression softening into this patronizing, fake pity. My engineer? He's the safe bet. He's the sensible sedan instead of a sports car. He's reliable. He's not going to lose my trust fund on a bad investment, and he's not going to cause a scene. He's nothing really. But he's mine. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, Nothing is exactly what you need to finally get that ring on your finger. She took a big, triumphant sip of her drink. The silence that followed felt suffocating. You could hear the nervous coughs and the clinking of ice. I saw the pity on some faces, the blatant, thinly veiled amusement on others, especially her parents. My dad looked like he was about to physically leap across the table. I pushed my chair back hard. The loud scrape of the chair on the marble floor made everyone jump and look at me. My vision tunneled. The years of silent concession, of swallowing my pride, all just boiled over. I looked at the woman I was supposed to marry in 12 hours. She was still wearing that self-satisfied, entitled smirk. She fully expected me to be the quiet, good boy, to laugh it off, and play the humble fiancé. She waited for me to speak. I stood up straight, adjusted my tie, and looked her dead in the eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I spoke with a terrifying clarity that chilled even me. The sports car has a six-figure lien on it. The room went completely silent again, but this time it was different. It was cold, deep, and laced with genuine, horrified shock. They knew I hadn't just made a comeback. I'd exposed a financial ticking time bomb. I didn't wait for the confusion or the inevitable screaming. I turned on my heel and walked straight out of the private dining room, leaving my entire meticulously planned future and the woman who just called me nothing behind. The wedding never happened. The aftermath was nuclear, immediate. My phone started blowing up with calls from her. I ignored them. Next was her father. Ignored him too. I drove straight to a cheap motel, turned my phone off, and slept better than I had in months. I woke up the next morning to a panic-stricken stream of voicemails. Her father's messages quickly shifted from demanding to overtly menacing, threatening me with lawsuits for emotional distress and breach of contract and defamation, the classic strategy of the entitled when they lose control. I immediately called my cousin, a corporate attorney who specialized in contract law and, thankfully, had always liked me. Let's call him the lawyer. Listen to all the messages. Don't respond to any of them. Then delete them all. No paper trail. The lawyer instructed. The only thing you need to do is send a registered, certified letter this morning, before the scheduled wedding time, stating that you are immediately and permanently rescinding your intent to marry her, citing irreconcilable differences, and that you demand the return of the engagement ring within 7 days. This puts the burden of proof entirely on them. I did it right away. The lawyer explained that legally, the ring is a conditional gift. If the person who received it breaks the engagement, they have to return it. If the person who gave it breaks it, it depends, but given the circumstances, the public humiliation and cruelty, a judge would almost certainly rule in my favor. Now, about that lien I mentioned. It wasn't a guess. The whole thing was deeply messed up. 3 months ago, I was talking to my accountant. He casually mentioned a finance friend who used to work with the Alpha. The friend, completely unaware I was marrying the Alpha's ex, casually mentioned a huge problem the Alpha had with a defaulted loan. The Alpha, in a highly leveraged and potentially fraudulent scheme, had bought a vintage sports car, the one she constantly talked about, and the whole thing was secured by assets, some of which were intertwined with her family's property deeds. Apparently, this is common in their high-risk circles. The Alpha, panicking because the loan was about to go public, tanking his reputation and jeopardizing her family's assets, had secretly approached her and her parents for an enormous, short-term bridge loan. I knew the exact amount and the specific car because I had overheard a frantic, hushed conversation between her and her mother just a few weeks ago. Her mother was freaking out about a looming payment deadline. Her parents were trying to quietly assume the debt, essentially paying off the Alpha to keep his mouth shut and cover the financial risk he posed to their portfolio. Her mother had actually stressed how crucial the marriage to me was to secure the new capital I was bringing in and the stability of my career, to help them absorb the fallout without having to liquidate other assets. The heartbreaking truth wasn't just that she preferred her ex. The disgusting truth was that I was the financial and reputational shield. I was the dependable, boring idiot they would marry off to help them clean up the Alpha's multi-million-dollar mess. I wasn't just nothing. I was a highly paid cash infusion. The wedding day passed, thankfully, without any fanfare. Her father called the lawyer, threatening him again. The lawyer, cool as ice, simply stated my claim to the ring and told her father that the only way to avoid a very public, very messy lawsuit, citing the exact contents of the rehearsal dinner toast as cruel and abusive treatment, was to return the ring immediately and agree to an immediate, mutual, no-fault dissolution. Her father, the entitled retired judge, couldn't stand the thought of public embarrassment. He tried a dirty trick. He claimed I had been cheating and even sent a pathetic, clearly doctored email with a heavily photoshopped picture of me with another woman to my parents' house. Total character assassination attempt. I forwarded the email to the lawyer, who was ecstatic. An attempt to extort and defame. Wonderful. That's a crime, and it just bought us more leverage. The conflict escalated fast. Her father immediately used his connections to pressure my engineering firm. He called my HR department, subtly implying I was having a mental breakdown and was unstable. It was designed to get me fired quietly, but I was ahead of them. I'd been working on a highly valuable patent for the last 6 months. 2 weeks before the disastrous dinner, I had filed the patent application and, separately, secured a lucrative consulting contract with a competitor who had been trying to poach me for a year. I was already planning my exit. I sent my resignation letter to my firm, effective immediately, citing a hostile environment created by external, unrelated business pressures. I CC'd the lawyer. My boss, knowing the value of my work, panicked and offered to double my salary. I politely declined, telling him I was moving on. I had the new job lined up, a significant raise, and a clean slate. The legal battle over the ring was the final confrontation. Her father, seeing his control slipping, pushed it to a preliminary hearing, determined to keep the ring and drag my name through the mud one last time. The lawyer was ready. He presented a full transcript of her rehearsal dinner speech, provided by a relative of mine who had recorded the entire evening, and an affidavit from a financial expert confirming the debt and lien on the Alpha's car, subtly exposing her family's direct financial entanglement. The final, devastating piece was the email her father had sent, attempting to defame me. During the hearing, the lawyer, with this terrifying, calm precision, asked her on the stand to confirm the exact wording of her toast. She tried to squirm out of it, claiming it was a misunderstood joke due to too much wine. The lawyer played the audio recording. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with zero tolerance for high-society family drama, listened, then looked directly at her father, who was now visibly panicking. The lawyer's closing statement was simple and direct. The petitioner, me, was not just publicly humiliated, he was publicly deemed nothing, and the respondent's marriage was admittedly a financial consolidation play, not a union of love. This is a clear case of emotional cruelty and fraud in the inducement. The petitioner walked away with his dignity intact. The respondent now attempts to keep the financial asset that symbolized the failed contract. This court should not reward such malice and deceit. The judge's ruling was swift and intensely satisfying. She granted the dissolution of the engagement immediately. The ring was to be returned to me within 48 hours. Furthermore, due to the documented attempts at harassment and defamation by her father, the judge imposed a temporary restraining order on him, forbidding him from contacting me or my new employer. She warned him that any further attempts at professional interference would result in severe contempt charges. Their entitlement and dirty tricks had blown up in their faces spectacularly. Her father even had to pay his own considerable legal fees. I got the ring back. It felt heavy and utterly meaningless in my hand. It didn't represent love. It represented a messed-up transaction I had escaped. The final consequence was simple. I had lost a planned future, but I had gained my self-respect and my freedom. The bitter, awful taste of betrayal was finally replaced by the clean, sharp taste of absolute justice. If you thought your dating life was a financial risk, maybe hit that subscribe button. You never know when you'll need an engineer who can uncover an intricate financial fraud scheme.